So you want to install a Lian Hydroshift AiO into your PC and you need a little help. Well, I got you covered right here on Robeytech. Today we're going to walk you through installing the AiO step by step so you can confidently install this AiO into your system and have it up and running in no time. Now we are going to cover what's inside the box. We're going to talk about putting the AiO together and what you need to actually install the AiO. We're going to talk about mounting the AiO into your PC. We're going to talk about mounting the pump onto an AMD system, as well as also onto an Intel system, and connecting all the cables so you are up and running and it works successfully. Now, if you're looking for a full overview of the AiO, don't worry, we got you covered. There is a video on that as well, and you can check that full review of the Hydroshift 360R right here. We also did a full buyer's guide on all the Hydroshift AiO options between the S, the R, and the TL versions, and you can check that out right here as well. But enough of me blabbering, let's get started. So let's get this unboxed. First and foremost, we pop open the box. And one of the things I actually really like about Lian Hydroshift AiOs is that first and foremost, you're going to recognize that the fans are actually completely connected to the AiO. So there's no need to basically mount all the fans together. You do have your instructions as well, which is great. This is your clip for hiding the AiO on the other side, the AiO covers and cables. You also have this that basically hides all your mounting stuff. And then you get this beautiful box of full hardware. Now, inside of this box is going to be all your mounting hardware for AMD and Intel. So let's take a look inside of here. Now these are all your puzzle pieces for connecting and moving and changing your TL stuff. These look like they're extra because it's already mounted. You have your RGB controller box and all the stuff that you connect all your fans up into. You have your mounting hardware. This one looks like it is for Intel. You have your small bag of screws. You have some thermal paste, as well as a thermal paste spreader and another clip guard. And then you also have additional mounting for turning your AMD socket into an Intel socket. So that's what's in here, as well as a QR code to download your software. A couple things about this AiO. First and foremost, number one, you are gonna have to remove the fans if you want to do all the peels. Believe it or not, there is actually a peel that you're gonna have to get to if you have either the RGB version or you have the TL version. If you have the S version, you're not gonna have to do this. But if you wanna get all the peels off, you are gonna have to take the fans off in order to get it all the peels. The second thing is about this AiO is that you can place the tubes on either side depending on the orientation that you're gonna put it inside of your case. In most cases, which people are gonna top down, this is not gonna be an issue, as you can see, but in the case that you might have an inverted motherboard or something like that, you may actually need to shift the tubes from this side to the other side in order for it to work correctly. What we're gonna show you is a step-by-step on how to do that. But the key thing is that this is more than likely not necessary. So make sure that you put it inside of your case or just place it inside your case first to make sure you need to do this before you follow the next step or you're gonna waste a lot of time. The first thing you're gonna need is a standard screwdriver. This is to get your fans basically off of the radiator. But the other thing we're using is an iFixit kit. The reason being is there's some much smaller screws that are not going to work all that well and bigger chance of stripping the screws, so I'd use something like an iFixit kit. That's gonna make it much easier in terms of helping you get to the smaller screws because this process is not as straightforward as you would think. So let's get started. First thing we're gonna do, and what I find is easiest, is grab your iFixit kit, like a little flathead one. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead and start removing these little plastic covers that are on top of each one of the screws here. So I'm just gonna basically pop all these off. It's pretty straightforward. And then now we're gonna take our larger screwdriver and we're gonna remove the fans. Okay, so now we've got the fans off. This is if you wanna do your peels, you would do this, you take off all the plastic. That's up to you. We'll do that later. But the more important thing now is to make sure that we get this clip removed. Now, this clip's kind of tricky. There's a couple brackets you'll see me kind of mess with, but for the most part, don't worry, it's very malleable. Like here's the normal one. It's very malleable. And just to kind of give you an idea, these are gonna be the key things. It's these little bits that kind of are holding it on. And then there's some little grips on the inside. So don't be afraid to pull on it to get it off. It does come off. It feels snug. So what we're gonna do is, the first thing we're gonna do is get it off of these little clips here. So it kind of comes off. And then here on the inside, there's these little plastic clips. You just gotta kind of push. So just kind of get it, and then you pull at those, you push and then kind of pull. So There we go. Give it a tug, it'll pull off, okay? It takes some work. So we're gonna switch to a small Phillips head. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start removing screws here. And make sure you don't lose these screws, they're small. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove these brackets. This is the next set of brackets we need to remove. And it's gonna take some manipulation of the tubes here. Okay, so the last part we gotta do is we gotta remove the Lian lead plate to finish the orientation change. So there's just 2 screws. This part's actually very straightforward. Okay, next step, guys, is actually to switch the orientations of the hoses. Now, it's gonna be a little bit of a different order than how we took it apart, because we found that this way, you can actually trap the hoses down and it makes it a lot easier to add these second plates. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna rotate the hoses to the other side, just like so. You're gonna grab these 2 things with their screw. So you're gonna make sure that these 2 little bumps are in the side. That's how it holds it down. And then you can screw this in. See these bumps? You're gonna take the second one and line it up with the furthest hole, like that. And you're just gonna screw it down. And that'll trap the hoses. Now, we're gonna grab these and the corresponding screws. And then you're gonna take the first one, the holes only line up one way, which is good. And the second one, you're gonna place right here, and then you're gonna screw it in. And then you got a little bit more of a tricky one down here. You might have to manipulate the hose to kind of get it in there, but now we have everything set. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this bracket, and this will be the opposite. Remember, you got 2 of these in the box. We're gonna take this bracket and now place it over. And remember, guys, there's only one way it goes on. So if you'll know you have the right black bracket based on the orientation. Just gonna basically push it on. Basically, it just takes a lot of pressure. There we go. Okay, last part, guys. And then it's pretty close to finished. You're gonna move the Lian Lee. So you wanna make sure it's upside down. Make sure the holes are lined up, like so. Screw in the screws. Okay, last part now. For putting on these, the one thing I would recommend is now that you've shifted this is just to peel, so you don't have to worry about all the plastic, just to peel the plastic for the one that's gonna get covered by the bracket. So I'm gonna peel this one right here. So now I'm gonna do is just put it down. And the good thing is that you can only put it down one way. Take your larger screwdriver now, and then you're gonna have to apply some pressure because this is gonna kind of push your tubes up. Okay, now that you've got all your screws in, guys, last little bit, time to add all the little small Lego pieces, and that's just as simple as popping them into each corner. And there we go. Now we have it back actually in the original orientation because we had switched it around. Now remember, guys, more than likely you're not gonna have to make this change, so don't do this unless you verify that you need to. And that's only probably if you're gonna do an inverted motherboard. Now we're gonna start by getting motherboards prepped, and we're gonna do this for both AMD and Intel, but we're gonna kick it off alphabetically by starting with AMD. So for AMD, you're gonna need a regular screwdriver, these 2 mounting brackets, and you're going to need your thermal paste. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take off the bracket that's pre-installed. Now you definitely wanna keep the screws. So make sure that you keep the screws and keep them off to the side there. And then next step is we're actually going to apply thermal paste. We learned that this thermal paste doesn't spread very well, so for the thermal paste spreader, I would use the NTH2, but for this one, we're gonna do what's called the dot method, and what we're gonna do is just put little dots all the way across. Main reason being is we wanna make sure that it covers the entire IHS. So for the next step, you're gonna need the 4 screws you removed when you took out the OG bracket, and then you're gonna need the new brackets. So first thing you're gonna do is put the bracket at the top here with these pointing down towards the CPU, and then you're just gonna screw them down. Same thing with the bottom. And you wanna make sure this is nice and tight, right? Because these brackets, you want them to be all the way down and super snug, because this is what gives it pressure against the CPU. Now for Intel, this is what we need. Standard screwdriver, we need our back plate, our 4 basically pegs, our thermal paste, and you also need your thermal paste spreader if you're gonna use a different thermal paste. Okay, so first step for this is we're gonna take our back plate and we're gonna peel our 3M, and then you're going to turn the motherboard over. You're going to basically place these in these holes, just like so. And then we're gonna take our pegs and we're gonna place them on each of these 4 corners. And it's gonna take some pressure to push them down and make sure they go snugly on each corner. And then next step, apply thermal paste. Okay, so because this stuff doesn't spread well, we're gonna do the dot method all the way through. Believe me, you're gonna get lots of coverage with this. Now we're actually going to put the AiO inside of the case. Now, one thing I would definitely recommend before even putting this in is making sure that your EPS CPU connection is plugged in. That's gonna be unique to your motherboard and outside of the scope of this particular guide, but given that the AiOs a lot of time will cover that, I just wanted to point that out. The other thing too is that now before we actually even place this inside, something that is unique to the R version and the TL version of this particular AiO is the fan connections. Now on the S version, you don't have to worry about this, but on this one you do. So on the side here, you're gonna push it and it pops right off. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this, like this. You're gonna push that on, just like that. And you're gonna take your cable, you're gonna swipe it in. So the final version should look just like this. And then the last thing that we wanna do is on the back, before putting it in, go ahead and do your peels. And that's it. Now it's ready to be put inside the case. These are the parts that you need for this section. You need the screws that were from the brown box. You need your regular screwdriver. And then of course you need your AiO and you need your case. So what we're gonna do is we're going to take our AiO and then you're going to basically set it nicely on the bottom of the case. You just gotta be very nice about this, just be gentle. And the main reason we're doing that is so we can take this cable and we can basically push it into the middle part, and this is gonna be agnostic. Obviously, depending on your motherboard, whether it goes here or whatever, but you wanna run it into like the middle slot. And then what you're gonna do is that as you're basically pulling up the AiO, you're gonna pull your cables at the same time, but then, oh, well, now we've just learned something here, guys, is that in this case, and this is always gonna be from time to time, sometimes you have to remove the rear fan, or you can install this after you do the AiO, but in this case, we're going to remove our rear fan. Okay, so now that we have our rear fan down, we're gonna repeat this step all over again, pushing this through to the center, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna get it up like this, and there's a little bit of some gymnastics here. You just wanna kind of center it. And then I'm gonna hold it with this hand. We're gonna start in this corner, grab our next screw, and you're gonna do the other screw in the corner. And then now, just gonna make sure our fitment and everything is good, and then finish pulling this cable back, so you can't see it. Now we've got that in, and we got that in the right spot. We're gonna go ahead and remount our rear fan. And then you can finish screwing in the rest of your radiator screws. Okay, so now that we have all of this done, let's go ahead and get the pump mounted to the motherboard. Okay guys, now what we're gonna do is we've shown you how to mount it inside of the case. So basically your pump is dangling and it's ready to be installed into a motherboard. But we wanna make sure for this guide, we show you how to install it on both AMD and Intel. So we're gonna be doing it outside. So we're gonna be zooming in, you're gonna follow along the exact same steps from here, but this is just so it's easier for us to show you in all angles what you're gonna have to do as you're putting things in. So don't worry about the fact that we're outside of the case, just follow along as we go step by step because you will end up with a successful installation by the time this is over. So let's start in alphabetical order with AMD. Now we're gonna mount this to the motherboard, but the key thing is you need to make sure that you remove the peel from the bottom of the cold plate on the AiO. One of the things we want to do is just make sure that your hoses are not twisted, they're coming off nicely, and that your cables are in the center, and that everything is untangled before we mount it to the motherboard. And then you're just going to go in a star pattern, so you're going to start them, and you're going to go to the other side, like 2 or 3 turns, then we're going to go down to the other one, same thing with the far side, 2 to 3 turns, and then we're just going to repeat that over and over again until it's all the way tight. But by doing it this way, you're making sure that it is even pressure being put down on the cold plate. So the last thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you plug in this particular PWM cable into the CPU header on your motherboard. In our case, it's light gray, but you're going to need to look at your motherboard manual and you'll see a diagram of this right here and what for this particular board. Find this and then plug this directly onto that connection. Now for Intel, first thing you're gonna do before doing anything else is you're going to peel this from the cold plate. So key thing here guys, before mounting is you just wanna make sure that your tubes are not twisted, they're coming off evenly, and that your cables are coming out of the center. You're just gonna kind of line it up, and then you're gonna start in the far corner here, and you're gonna take it, you get four times. We're gonna go to the top corner, then we're gonna go to the bottom corner 4 times, then top corner, and then you're going to repeat that process. Then when you've done it like 4 times, you can just go ahead and finish it all the way up in each corner, but go until it stops. You'll have solid and equal pressure all the way across the cold plate. So then you're gonna take this cable, it's the PWM cable coming off of it, you're gonna plug it into the CPU header on the motherboard. It's a light gray on ours, but you're gonna look at a motherboard manual, just like what you're seeing here on the diagram, and plug this into your motherboard. Okay, so you've mounted it either to your AMD or Intel motherboard, and your build should look very similar to this. The one thing that you'll probably notice is you have this one cable, your CPU cable, that's kind of dangling down after you hooked it up. That's no problem. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna quickly route that, and then we're gonna start hooking things up from the back. Okay, so next, what you're gonna need is you're gonna need this little black box right here. This is going to be all of the connections you need for the AIO and to connect it to the motherboard. Now, we're not gonna show you how to cable manage all this stuff. We're just gonna show you how to connect, where to connect all of the parts into this and into the motherboard. And then the last thing is this right here. This is either a double-sided sticky thing if you have plastic, or you can be it for magnetic as well. And you're just gonna decide what you're gonna use based on what case you have. So for controller, first we take this connection and plug it into 1. 2, 3, and 4, if you're gonna use other Lian like TL fans or RGB fans, those you would plug into the other slots, but you wanna make sure they're in order of 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you have something in 1, 2, you just wanna make sure it's sequential. Next cable connection we need is power from your PSU, PCI power. You're gonna need to make sure that you have one of these connections. They'll usually split 4 or 3. You wanna just make sure that it splits down to 3. Plug it in right into there. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna connect all of our front motherboard connectors in to make sure that this is finally set up the way it needs to be set up. You have 5-volt RGB, USB, and you have a PWM connection. So we'll start with the RGB header. Next is our USB, and last is the PWM fan header. Now, a couple things now that I've plugged it all in. Guys, reminder, we are showing where it is on our motherboard, but you're gonna need to look at your motherboard, so they may be in different spots. That's super important. Number 2, the fan header, the PWM header, that is actually only an information header. It doesn't actually control anything, which is why I plugged it in there versus usually some people are like, why didn't you put it in the CPU header? That is completely an option as well, but given it all it does is read information, that's why I plugged it down there, because I just want to make sure that it's actually presenting information, etc. That's not a big deal. Wherever you want to plug it on your motherboard is absolutely fine. Now, last thing we're gonna do, get the build kind of prepped and finished. Everything is now installed, and then we're gonna do final steps like putting on this cool clip and doing all our peels, and then we'll turn it on. And the final part, enjoying the fruits of your labor. Okay guys, so that was your step-by-step for installing the Lian Hydroshift 360, both the R, the S, and the TL version of the AIO. We showed you all the differences and everything like that. For it to get all the right colors, you're gonna download L-Connect 3, which we're not gonna do a whole video on that because it changes all the time. So if you want more information or anything else that would be a guide on that, let us know down in the comments below. Also, let us know down in the comments below if there was anything that we missed during this guide or anything that wasn't clear, because we're always trying to improve these and release these for almost every major AIO that comes out over the course of the next, here to the future. Now, while you're down there, make sure you slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so you get a notification each and every time we post videos like this right here on Robeytech. And if you want to continue the conversation or have further questions, or you just want to know more about the right AIO to choose, head over to our Discord server, discord.gg/Robeytech. Amazing place to ask these questions with other like-minded tech and PC enthusiasts who would love to ask those questions. You know what? You might just make a friend. Also, make sure you follow us at Robeytech absolutely everywhere. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys, and look forward to seeing you on the next one.